wax is something that we can hand do ourselves. We don't need any specialised equipment to put the wax on, and it's just a nice, unique finish that we do for our cork closures.
The Bent Road boys made this wine, didn't they?
We work in conjunction with the boys at Bent Road, and yes, that's something that they've done as well.
That's the sort of closure they use frequently.
Yeah.
For their wines, isn't it? I thought when I was looking at it, I thought to myself straight away, "Oh, you got that made at Bent Road." And
yeah.
Doing that, yeah.
Wine brand.
And you, Brad, you're happy with cork on a white wine and so on? You're happy that it's, I suppose the wine's so popular, it drinks so readily, you're not, it's not as if it's going to be kept for a long time, I suppose. Do you design, I mean, it's
it does have some potential to age, but no, it is a wine to drink relatively soon. And we only cork a couple of our wines, but those that are in the European style, we like to by that European tradition.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think these wines, the Spanish and the Portuguese themselves would say with their Albarino or Alvarino that the wine's not meant to be an aged white wine. It's meant to be enjoyed really fresh with really fresh light foods, and particularly in warmer weather and so on. And yours does the trick there. And too much aging of it will take away that very freshness that is so lovely about the wine.
Yeah. There are sample examples that are made in oak, and also some that go through Malo. That does change that fresh fruitiness to a creamier wine.
Yeah, no, it's lovely.
Is this the first time people have tried an Albarino, or do we have?
I think it's growing in popularity in various parts of Australia. It's one of the sort, as you said earlier on, Brad, it's one of those new alternative varieties that's caught on. And I guess it's got a little bit more richness than Riesling or Semillon, but it's in that style. It's the citrusy type of thing with a little bit of floral, but a little bit more richness to taste. But it's nowhere near as full-bodied as Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, Verdelho, Viognier, and so on. So it gives you the freshness, but not quite as steely as Riesling or Semillon. So it fits in nicely, I think. And also, I think there's a bit more going on, a bit more interesting juiciness on it than some of the Italian white wines, which are at the moment also very popular. Yeah, good question, Sue. So the so-called green wines, the Vino Verdes from that part of that northern part of Spain across to the Atlantic, and also that part, often they have Albarino in them as well, and they're deliberately grown on these high trellising systems and picked pretty young to give a very tingling, fresh sort of wine. And they call them green wines because they often smell a bit like pine needles, and it's just a particular style. They're prized mainly in Spain and Portugal for their accompaniment to shellfish and things like that. And you can see this wine doing exactly that, Brad. I think it's be a great.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a good pairing with seafood.
Can you organise me some fresh prawns and avocado and stuff like that? That'd be nice.
We can actually on a Friday. We do get a delivery to Stanthorpe once a week.
Yeah, we can go to the Fishman in Stanthorpe and get some stuff.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
What's the RRP, Brad?
So this one's $35 a bottle, but we are doing a 15% discount for the Zoom tasting participants. So we can contact us directly. Let us know that you're on the meeting, and we can do a discount.
That'd be good.
I must say, Andrew, I have stayed at Sancerre, and Brad gets up very early in the morning and cooks a most wonderful, a fabulous breakfast.
Yeah.
Absolutely fabulous breakfast.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
And I couldn't have stayed at a more comfortable place on a cold night.
Brad
Yes,
was
thanks,
saying to
Des.
me earlier on when we were on the vineyard seminar this afternoon together, and Brad was saying that he's exhausted at the moment because everybody staying now can't readily go off and get a meal somewhere, so they have to stay in for dinner, and Brad's cooking for them. So I bet dinner's
Yeah.
quite just as good as breakfast, Des.
Yeah. No, we wear many hats.
And Brad, just obviously got your Alvarino. What are the other wines that you have in your repertoire?
So we have a small selection. We only make wine that we grow in our vineyard, but currently we have a Semillon Sauv Blanc blend, which is almost sold out. We have a rosé that we make from our Merlot grapes, which is once again a little bit interesting and different. They have the Alvarino. We do a barrel ferment Sauv Blanc, so it's an old world French style Sauvignon Blanc. And we have a Shiraz Cabernet. And back to the strange birds or the alternate varieties, we're getting close to having our Mansang bottled and released, which is made in a dessert style fortified white wine. So yeah.
Oh,
Watch
interesting.
this space for that one.
Array of alternative wines there. That's lovely. If we want to look at, I can see the questions coming up. If you want to look for your wines online and look for your accommodation online, what's the best website to go to? To the Sancerre.
So we have two websites that link to each other. So we have a viewwine.com.au website, as well as a sancerreestate.com.au website.
And Sancerre being the accommodation and View Wines being the wine barn.
And
Yep.
yeah.
All right, terrific. Lovely, thank you. Well, we might move along to the next one is the Heritage Estate Tempranillo, and I just have to pass some off camera here. You know how it is, and we should have had Rob and Therese by now, but something has gone wrong there. So I have had this wine before with them, and have tasted and talked. So I'll talk to this one briefly. I mean, I think everybody knows my enthusiasm for Tempranillo on the Granite Belt. I think the Granite Belt is remarkably similar to the northern high plains of Spain, where Tempranillo originates, and to that matter, Rioja, which is a little further to the northeast. And the sort of very cold nights and hot days and arid, rocky soil types suit Tempranillo very well. And the Tempranillos that I've obviously had before, along with my own one from Hidden Creek and also Golden Grove, which are down in the Ballindine area, are well known. But this is the first commercial release of in any sort of good quantity from Heritage, and it's from Heritage being, as we mentioned earlier on, being quite a bit to the north of Stanthorpe, the town Stanthorpe itself. And Heritage, well, they've been there for ages, and Rob and Therese bought it about 2 years ago, and it's very, very famous for its Chardonnay Heritage Estate, but along has come this Tempranillo, and this is off their own fruit. When you smell it and taste it, it's got a really juicy, sweet red and black cherry aroma. It's particularly sweet and soft on the aroma. On the taste, it's got a real juicy, not unlike Pinot Noir feel to it. Whereas the Tempranillos from Hidden Creek and Golden Grove have a bit more tannin and have a bit more oak, and a bigger, drier sort of probably a generally bigger, more earthy style. This is particularly velvety and soft and juicy. And I have been very intrigued by the wine because quite a few Tempraneos that are around in the marketplace, particularly from Adelaide Hills in Western Australia and some bits of central Western Victoria, the wines are very tannic and they're very acidic as well. And when you have a red wine, or any wine for that matter, that's got high acid and high tannin, they reinforce each other, and the overall package is a very full-bodied, very palate assaulting style of red, which is no bad thing for certain food types. This wine is notable by its very velvety palate feel and that very sweet cherry aroma. Of course, how they did it, their winemaker made it a bit like a Pinot Noir. So with Pinot Noir, one of the pretty common techniques is the so-called whole bunch cold soak. That's where you pick the whole bunches in the vineyard. You don't crush it. You put the whole bunches in some sort of container, which you can seal, and you keep the temperature low enough in that container so that fermentation.
Excuse me.
It is.
Excuse me, Maestro.
Yeah.
Could you repeat all that? I wasn't paying attention.
Okay.
Just the process, if you don't.
Sure. One of the time-honoured techniques for making Pinot Noir, which is used a lot with other reds as well, is called cold soak, or whole bunch fermentation. You often hear it referred to, or carbonic maceration, which has also been called Cab Mac in the past.
Yep.
And that's where you pick whole bunches of grapes, and you don't let the grapes get damaged, and you don't crush or destem the grapes. And you put the whole bunch with its stalk into a container of some sort, normally a stainless steel tank, but you can use plastic tubs or plastic bags for that matter. The Cab Mac process used to use garbage bags. And then you can keep the temperature cold enough so that the natural yeasts that have come in on the grapes from the vineyard don't accidentally start fermentation. And what happens is that the bunches of grapes start to break down because they're steeping in their own juice, but without any alcohol. So it's a very important, interesting technique. Now, it's the main Burgundy technique, and it's used all over Australia as well for making Pinot Noir, particularly in cold places like Tasmania and across southern Australia. So what happens is the skins break down, but without any alcohol being formed, and you get great colour. When alcohol starts to form, the alcohol is a very good agent for soaking flavour out of the skins, but the flavour that it soaks out is a bigger, broader, and I dare I say it, slightly harsher type of flavour. So if you allow the skins to break down and a soak process to take place without the alcohol forming, you get all the extraction of the silky flavours. And that's a big part of how you can make a silky, velvety wine. Well, out of any variety, really, but it's principally a technique used in Pinot Noir, but it's used a bit on Shiraz, actually used a lot on Shiraz, actually, and Tempranillo as well. Usually in Spain, there'd be a combination. There'd be some cold soak and then some maceration, sturdy pump over maceration as well to make sure you get enough tannin. But in this particular one from Heritage, they've leaned towards the soft extraction process to get a particularly juicy wine. And I think they've done a really good job on that. So what do you think? I could mistake that for a Pinot Noir.
I think it's I think that's pretty good gear.
I think it's very good gear.
It's unlike yours, Andrew.
Yep.
It's unlike all the others I've tasted on the Granite Belt. And I guess who made this?
This is made by John. John, who was the son of the
Handy.
Yeah, but who's that? Is that him?
John
talking?
Handy.
John Handy.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, John Handy made this one, who was the original
I know
winemaker.
that,
At,
He was
He's a
talking.
very handy winemaker.
yeah, absolutely, very handy.
I
Yes,
mean, we know his Chardonnay is 5-star.
absolutely.
It's
Yeah,
terrific Chardonnay. It's one of my favourites. And I think although on the map you had them up the top end, they have some very good Shiraz fruit down in the Ballindine that they make some pretty good wine from.
yeah,
as well.
yeah. They certainly.
He's a very accomplished winemaker. I like his stuff.
Yep. Yes, so do I. They've achieved some remarkable results, particularly with that Chardonnay. On front covers of the national magazines. They were on the Wine State. Remember that big spread, and they won one of the Wine State magazine awards for Chardonnay one year with a couple of years ago, and they've done really well for themselves. Yeah, it's a pity. I don't know what happened to them tonight. I only saw.
I think from memory that was a 16.
Yeah, that'd be about right. Yep. No, it's lovely wine, lovely, juicy, and soft. We should move on to the.
Andrew,
Yeah.
Before you do, Andrew,
Hmm.
I agree with what you're saying. Lovely, juicy, and soft. And the discussion you just had about whole bunch. What did you call it? The process methodology that you use, which makes it quite distinctly different to the other Tempranieros I've tried from the Granite Belt. I wonder about the marketing on the back of the bottles that we see, because this one doesn't actually go into the difference in technique that they've adopted for the production of this wine, which gives it a very different character. And I know that we're limited with how much we can put on, but winemakers, I find, often tend to be short on their descriptions, more than fulsome on their descriptions, which certainly for someone like me would be more helpful than less. So I wonder whether you wanted to make a comment on that. I'm not picking on the heritage wine. I think it's pretty common across the spectrum of wine.
Sure. Well, I'll go first, and then we can have some other wine producers make a comment as well. It's a fine line between saying winemaking process and boring everybody. I know myself from doing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of wine talks and tastings to mainly Brisbane, but all over the place type consumers, and for that matter, some pretty advanced wine people as well, that when you start talking about barrels and whole bunch fermentations and so on, their eyes glaze over. And I find I have to very, very directly relate it to the taste in the glass in front of them. But if you don't do that, or if you don't have an audience or a venue that's receptive to doing that, it's very difficult to talk about winemaking. And winemakers tend to do it a bit as sort of part of the process you just have to go through. And I think back labels, it's similar, how much do you say, how much do you not say? I mean, there are some mini essays on some back labels, and I've seen the marketing surveys that say that 99.99% of consumers don't read it. And it can look, well, there's theories about whether it helps or hinders you selling the wine. So it's a fine thing as to how much you say and what to do. I guess it's just something that you've got to work out. I mean, what do you reckon, Brad? What do you reckon say a lot about winemaking or not so much on your back label?
Just have to unmute. There we go. We talk more about the wine with our guests, and we do encourage them to try the wine. We often say that the description's more a guide for down the track once you've purchased it, not as a deciding factor on purchasing.
Yeah. Do you think? Yeah, go on, Des. Yep.
I like the labels that cleverly have a little story. You're quite right. No one wants too much whole bunch press, all that kind of. But I like the ones where they say they tell a little story. When we were picking these grapes, we saw 2 black snakes crawl across the ground, disappear into the granite. Is that a sign? Well, God, I look at the wine, I think, I mean, I just made all that up, but occasionally you see that sort of thing and it captures my attention.
Yeah.
But
you could write back labels for wineries, Des, with that kind of.
Yes, I can write the history of the world on a stamp, on a matchbox. I can tell you, I've done it. But Andrew, the economics of it is too. A lot of people that cut prices, you know, in the old days when you had to have two runs and two separate labels, as this one does, it's a saving not to have that label on the back that no one reads.
Yeah,
it's a little printing saving. If you just have one label on the front, you've only got to do it once. You don't have to roll it through the machine.
Yeah.
There's another. May I? There's another little folly for winemakers. And it came out very clearly to me the other day. In the COVID lockdown here, all of a sudden I didn't have current vintage bottles open. So I thought it was a very good time to actually open some of our back vintages. And I came with some trepidation, I might add, to a Colombard, which of course is an aromatic style that you really don't expect to last long. At least that's what I was always told. And I picked it out, and it was 2002, and it had a screw cap on it, which is one of our early screw caps. And I looked on the back label and I saw, should sell well for 2 years. Now, when you've been a winemaker for 20 years, as I have now, that is a statement you never, ever put on the back of a bottle, right? Because the reality is, A, it can really seriously divert people. And the other thing is, it can be horribly wrong. We opened this 18-year-old wine. It was fantastic, actually. I thought, what a dope. Should sell her for 2 years. Yeah. There you go.
There you go. It's part of the marketing, isn't it? Look, there's a couple of questions.
I think John was a journalist before he went to this, so he should be very good at writing labels.
He is. What do you mean he could be? I've seen some of John's stuff. There's another little bulletin I get from John regularly, and he's a very fine writer indeed. But I'm just going to finish off on the heritage, and then we'll actually go to John for his wine. So, and Peter, this sort of brings in a bit more on the answer to your question about why don't you talk on the back label about whole bunch. So when you do a whole bunch cold soak and then a whole bunch ferment, remember I said earlier on that you've put the whole bunches in and the stalks are still there with all the berries connected to them. Now, of course, all that soaks away and whatever. Unavoidably, the stalks also soften. And one of the things that you do get out of whole bunch fermentations is a touch of green herbal flavour. Now, a little bit of green herbal stalkiness can be actually quite a nice thing, and it adds a bit of complexity, and it can add a little bit of aromatic lift. And you see it a lot in Pinot Noir. Now, if you get it wrong, if you've got too much stalk and not enough richness out of the grapes, you can get a green wine. And the Yarra Valley can battle that. And if you hear winemakers talking about Pinot Noir, that's one of the great issues, is to get the balance right. I reckon they've done it really well on this wine, but I see one of the comments is that someone said that there's a green tea, slight greenness on this wine. And yes, there is, but it's just a little bit of complexity to the wine, I think, and I think it's rather nice. But some people don't like that, and it's one of the issues. The wine, someone also said, do we know what the sweetness is? It's probably got a touch. I don't think there's much to it, and I wouldn't. What doesn't worry me particularly that the fact that it's probably got a 0.5% or something at the end. But I think all round it's a lovely silky soft style of Tempranillo, and yeah, the back label wouldn't be big enough for us to make all the comments that we've made on it now. But there we are. So I think we should move now to wine number 3, which is, we don't have an upper house in Queensland, John, I know, but you're going to tell us all about the name of this wine and how you made it from. So without further ado, John Arledge from Whiskey Gully is going to talk about his upper house Cabernet Sauvignon 2018. John, over to you. You got to unmute your microphone.
I go unmute. Okay, with great pleasure. Anyway, Andrew. Yeah, the name Upper House Cabernet Sauvignon, actually, I decided that we should have for our red wines, our best red wines, we should have parliamentary names, parliamentary or political names. And mainly because I found when I was a journalist that red wine and politics go very well together. And I always claim to people that one of the techniques that I have was not falling for the old trap of trying to grab people as they walked out of the cabinet room and say, come on, what was the decision that they've just made on such and such? Because they'd always say, I'm sorry, I can't tell you that, it's cabinet in confidence. But what I did discover, if you said, Minister, I've got a bottle of red wine open over here, do you care to join me? After 3 glasses, they'd sell you their grandmother.
Well, you were, tell everyone you're a parliamentary journalist. Tell us whereabouts were you based and tell us about that.
Well, I started off in Sydney. I was, Neville Wran was Premier. Now, I know, I mean, this is hard to believe since I'm 38. But,
you crammed
Neville Wran was Premier.
Career, John.
And, I have. Amazing. Going back in time was one of them. Anyway, I was, a political reporter, a parliamentary reporter, really, I suppose, for AAP in the Bear Pit, as they called the New South Wales Parliament, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And I worked with some great people and met lots of lovely people and enjoyed, that was the greatest thing about it. Every day I enjoyed a subsidised lunch washed down with subsidised wine. You can't do that anymore.
No,
they don't do it anymore, do they, Des? It's not subsidised. Damn them. Anyway, later on, I worked with Quentin Dempster up in the Queensland Parliament as well, mainly for the ABC actually, and then sort of, did off and on with Today Tonight. I also did a bit of stuff, none of which has got anything to do with this.
When did you establish Whiskey Gully?
And did you start drinking to forget?
Actually, Des, why I did start, the reason I got a winery is because I figured, being a journalist, I figured making my own wine, it must be cheaper. And it isn't.
When did you establish, tell us about Whiskey Gully, John. When did you establish it?
Okay.
Tell us how you're going.
23 years ago, we came here. And we really came here as a change. Our daughter was just 5 years old. We came up here because we thought it would be a better life for all of us. And so we decided that planting a few vines would be a good thing. So we did that. And we then thought, God, how the hell do we sell these? So we thought, I know, we'll open a little restaurant and then people can come in and buy wine and that'll be that fixed. And then we're sort of fitting out the restaurant, thinking, my God, how do we get people to the restaurant? So we built a couple of cottages so that people can come stay here and then say, oh, great, I'll come down for a meal. And by the way, I'll buy a dozen wine. This is an economic theory called vertical integration. And the next logical step is a small regional airline, but we haven't got there. Perhaps we will one day when I'm 36.
Yeah, before your 36th birthday. That sounds like a good business plan.
Yeah.
Tell us about...
So what do you think? Do you like the Upper House? Does anyone... I noticed that John Rawlings is sitting down there drinking Bungawarra, which is something of a traitorous act, I have to say, Johnny.
I was going to come back and talk about that later on. I'll go first and say that you can see the very ripe, rich, black-curranty character of the Cabernet. It's distinctly Cabernet. Couldn't be anything else. And there's a lovely... there's a cedary... the rich cedar timber, when you get antique furniture with the rich cedar polish on it, you get that lovely, rich, sweet oak on it. It's got that as well. And, it's certainly that style of Cabernet. And I think probably Cabernet Sauvignon is the best red to show off that lovely, rich, cedary oak. You don't really get it on any other type of variety, really. So it's a very attractive aroma with that, the cedar meets the blackcurrant. And palate-wise, it's obviously longer and a bit firmer than the Tempranillo we just had, but it's certainly still got that same juicy mid-palate and it'd be very, very much a crowd pleaser, I would have thought, to everybody. That's my comment. And Laura, you should kick off. What do you think about the Cabernet?
Thank you, Andrew, highlighting me. It's probably out of the three, it's probably my favorite, and I'm not just saying that because the winemaker's here tonight, but I actually really enjoy Cabernet anyway. I think it's got great complexity, length. It's really enjoyable. Maybe a little tiny bit of, I'm not as experienced as you, Andrew, but I'm getting a little tiny bit of that typical Cabernet sort of eucalypt herbaceousness, maybe like a little tad, which I kind of like.
That's part
maybe
of the
not as much.
complexity. That's what you get on
Yeah.
Cabernet, I think. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, but that's why I like them. So, good job.
I mean, good job. Absolutely. Yeah. How do you enjoy it, James? I can see you smiling away there. You enjoying this? You can nod. Terrific.
You should hear the children in the background, so it's quite noisy where we are.
Oh, if you're on mute, that's right. Okay. Yeah, well, we might, that's right. So the Sunshine Coast crowd have drunk a bit of French wine in their time. So Mark and co there, and Lindy, do you think this would be easily comparable to, shall we go a Cru Classé Saint Julien, do you think, of a reasonably recent vintage? Will that do for a reasonable comparison? What do you think? How are you enjoying the wine so far?
Well, we've enjoyed all the wines very much. El Rico is fantastic. The Tempranillo, probably a little too juicy for me, but really delicious. The Cabernet, I like the lovely pure Cabernet characters. And your comparison to Saint Julien is probably quite apt.
Thank you. That's lovely. So, John Arledge, that's lovely. Tell us about other wines in your portfolio. You know, you mentioned a moment ago that you're using your political names and parliamentary names for your range, and we have here the Cabernet. Tell us the other wines in that range. Sounds very interesting.
Well, we make two, basically, as you know, we have two types of Shiraz, really. We either get a year where we get a medium-bodied Shiraz, or we get a year where we get a fairly full-bodied Shiraz. When it's a full-bodied Shiraz, we call it Black Rod Shiraz. And when it's a medium-bodied Shiraz, we call it Division Bell Shiraz. We also have a Republic Red occasionally, which we're about to actually bottle our 19 Republic Red, which is a little doozy, which is a Cabernet Shiraz blend, and sometimes contains a little Chardonnay, depending on how the final blending goes. We sometimes put a little Chardonnay in that one. And what else do we have? We have the parliamentary blend, which is usually Shiraz, Cabernet, and Malbec. And then finally, and this is the one I like most, it's another great Arledge name fail, and I have many of them, Montesquieu Malbec, of course, after the Comte de Montesquieu, the father of the separation of powers. Very learned. And does it split across the palate in some way? Well, yeah, I hope so. Actually, I hoped someone was going to actually mention Bordeaux tonight, by the way, and I don't know whether you can see this. I'll have to better hold it right up to the camera. It's some shabby Mouton Rothschild, is it? 97.
Oh, how grand! How grand!
So the Saint Julien, we actually, a friend of mine came up the other night and bought a magnum of Saint Julien with him, and it was absolutely sensational. This wine was kept too long, sadly. I actually bought it in France, and to be honest, I was a little disappointed with it. But that side of the Dordogne, of course, as usually most of those wines from Medoc upwards are around about 85% Cabernet. And they are really, I think they're, you know, I mean, I dearly love Burgundies, but you know, that side of Bordeaux, up beside the estuary there, it's just sensational. So that's, if you like, in my mind, when we produce Cabernet, and when I talk to Rod, my winemaker, I'm urging him, if I can, that if let's try to see what sort of characters we've got. We don't want to make a French wine. We want to make our wine, but
Yeah.
luckily Rod also enjoys this style of wine, and so that's what we do basically. We love that style, and I love, you know, Cabernet to me, it's got that lovely little donut in the middle, often 100% Cabernet, which is probably why they don't do it in Bordeaux, but 100% Cabernet often has that little donut. And I even like that little donut in the middle where the taste drops off. I'm a sucker for it. Oh, that looks nice.
Madaran.
Andrew.
Yes, Des.
Andrew and John. I think you're going overboard, and you go too far when you want to talk about San Josef and this to me, blackcurrant, dark fruit, and there's real tobacco hint in this,
Yep.
and a smokiness, not in a bad way, but like that cured meat. Andrew, do you think?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, absolutely. I think.
And you know what that is? You know what that is? That's bloody Coonawarra, mate. That's Coonawarra Cabernet Sauvignon. Terra Rossa soils. It's a Wynns Coonawarra Cabernet Sauvignon, as good as, made by Sue Hodder, one of the great winemakers in the country. I don't have to say she's a woman. Her name's Sue Hodder. But this is pretty good stuff, John. I really like it, mate.
Thanks, mate.
And I see it more Coonawarra than the more delicate floral, the fragrant stuff coming from Mosswood and WA, which is just blows your mind. But
actually,
I really like this. I think it's more Coonawarra than WA.
Yeah. I thought Rod, a winemaker, Rod McPherson, he said let's use. We had a brand new barrique of Latour oak. It's from around that Jura forest crescent of northwest France. We had that barrel, and he said, let's put it in there. And I thought, well, this is I don't know. I said, it's a fairly medium-bodied Cabernet. And I said, do you think it might, how do you think that's going to go? And he said, I think it's going to match perfectly. And I think he was dead right, actually. I certainly, there's a lot of savoury oak there, and it's definitely there, but it works. It's big fruit. Give a big oak.
Is that your fruit?
Oh, absolutely.
How old are those vines?
23 years. We planted them when they got here.
Yeah. RRP?
Actually, believe it or not, the RRP now is 37. It was, when we devised this thing, it was 32. So your drinkers are getting a bargain at the moment. On anyone who bought that is getting a bargain from my side of things anyway. So
we love the sound of that. I see the comment. There's a slight eucalypty character. Don't know about that. Certainly, and the comment about other regions. I've had some Bordeaux reds that had a minty. They didn't say eucalypt, but there was no question there was a mintiness that you can get in some Bordeaux Cabernet, and you see mintiness in Cabernet quite a lot. And the shift to say that it's eucalypty is not a very big shift at all. I think a slight minty lift or complexity on Cabernet is probably part of the variety. I think it's quite nice. Pat, you've made that comment about the complexity. Do you want to say a bit more about that? You're obviously enjoying the wine there. Tell us what you think about that.
I think Granite Belt Cabernet is hugely underrated.
Yes.
Across the board, I mean, I'm a big fan of Rod McPherson. Hi, John, as you well know. Rod makes wine for a couple of wineries in the Granite Belt, and consistently, the Cabernets that he makes are absolutely outstanding. Personally, my taste buds go more in the direction of a fruity style red, but a fruity style red with body. The thing, I find as I'm getting older, I'm turning away from the really full-bodied, dry, sandy style of red you typically get from South Australia, particularly Coonawarra. I think the quality of the Cabernet coming out of the Granite Belt is just outstanding, consistently. Robert Shannon is another one. Does a fantastic Cabernet. Also, Granite Ridge, which is made by Rod. So some really good Cabernets. John, yours is right up there, mate. It's well done.
Thank you. Actually, speaking of Robert, I was at a gathering the other day, a small dinner party, and Robert brought along his first ever vintage of Cabernet, which was 2000, and it was a stunner. It was beautiful.
When the Cabernets are good, they age wonderfully. It's just one of the great things about Cabernet, the ageability. And Cabernet kind of, because the marriage of Cabernet Sauvignon and oak barrels is such a lovely marriage, and it produces such a lovely result. But the problem is, of course, it's fashionable at the moment to criticise any wine that relies on oak barrels. And, you know, when I say rely on, you know, the oak's in the background, I know, but there's nonetheless still a marriage between the variety and the oak. And a lot of people think in the current craze, particularly sommeliers in restaurants in trendy bistros, that any oak's bad. And Cabernet gets a bad name at the moment, unfortunately. So, you know, Pat, when you said Cabernets are so lovely and there's so many of them, I agree with you. But when you go to restaurants and bistros in capital cities, it can be quite difficult to, if you're feeling like a Cabernet. And, you know, Yarra Valley, for example, is a district that has made a name for itself in doing great Cabernet. But if you go to some of the best Melbourne restaurants and bistros, not quite at the moment, but in a bygone era, you're flat out finding Yarra Valley Cabernet because Melbourne sommeliers dismiss it because it's one of those varieties that involves oak barrels so much. Therefore, it's untrendy. You know, just a comment by me. Whereas I think the
we're up here. We're actually finding this is changing. I mean, I agree with you. A few years ago, I heard the stat that bottle shops were selling 30 Shiraz bottles for every one bottle of Cabernet. I have to say that we've noticed an upsurge over the last couple of years in the number of people who come in and saying they want to taste Cabernet. You know, we would find that it was always people who were talking about, I want to taste your Shiraz. Well, things are changing, which is great.
Yep. Your wine gives you, because that cedary oakiness and that Cabernet richness is harmonised so well, there is that richness. Earlier on, I said that there was a mid-palate silkiness to your Cabernet. And I think Shiraz tends to have a fuller body. Well, if it's a full-bodied Shiraz, you know, ripe Shiraz, it gives you a full body without the silkiness. You get the cold climate style as well, which gives you the peppery spiciness. But there's a certain harmony and silkiness about your Cabernet, which I would agree would find favour very readily with a lot of people who would come to your cellar door, and it's a lovely wine.
May I ask a question? What's the soil type, John, for the Cabernet vines?
It's absolutely granite, mate. That's what we've got. We've got a little bit of trap rock, but I mean, basically what it is someone once described growing anything up here as advanced hydroponics. Because what you've got is this medium of basically decomposed granite. And it goes down about, on our property, it goes down about 1 metre. And under that is a layer of what they call billy, which is impenetrable clay. now.
I was really interested in the mint comment before because I tasted a couple of 707s and 407s a little while ago now, and I got this rush of mint. And I didn't get it here, I must say, but someone has. And but when I had it and I went back to look for it again, Andrew, on a second taste or another look at it, I couldn't find it. And I thought, where's it gone? And what did I do to freshly opened? It was there. But 5 minutes later in the glass and you swirl again, I couldn't find it. And I was, you know, it was like looking for a lost child or something. I was really disappointed.
Yeah. Look, I think that that slight bit of herbal mintiness that can be on Cabernet is just one of the volatile components. It's part of Cabernet. Some have got a little bit, some have got more. When it's a little bit only, particularly when it's ripe Cabernet, I think it's one of the volatile components that disappears pretty quickly, and you don't really see it. It's probably not something that you really worry about too much. I think if you've got well ripened Cabernet,
no,
something you see.
It's worth worrying about. My goodness.
I like that. I like the really rich succulent blackcurrant character. It's not blackberries; it's black currants, and the cedariness. There's a really sweet cedary note on it. That's what I really like about it, and it's very well done. And so to me, I wouldn't particularly go off describing or noticing the any mintiness or sort of thing. I think the rest of it is such a big part of the wine, and it's so nice. So I wouldn't go looking for it. Now we've got other questions or comments from anybody. Anybody want to ask a question? Yes.
If I may.
Yes.
Firstly, can I say I think this is a lovely wine. I probably hadn't appreciated Granite Belt Cabernet before. I don't even remember having tried it before. So thank you for the introduction.
How do I know when I'm on?
Sorry?
But I'm not talking to me.
It's a delightful wine, and I really did enjoy it. I wonder, last fortnight there was a question around, what is the iconic Granite Belt wine? And I was just reflecting on the list of wines last month, last fortnight, and tonight. And you go and have a look at the Margaret River, you think of Cabernet, you think of Chardonnay, and there's some others, and Yarra Valley you just mentioned, and other places. And there seems to be a distilled perception of a small number, 1 or 2 or 3, core wines that come out of a region. Yet, I wonder whether the Granite Belt's still just at that experimental stage where it's trying to work out what's best, and what's it going to look like in 10 years' time? Is the Granite Belt going to be known for 2 or 3 wines as the pinnacle wines for the region?
Yeah, good question.
Margaret River.
Good question, and much debated amongst Granite Belt winemakers. One of the issues that is discussed a lot is the fact that the Granite Belt, being a relatively small area, needs to, have sell wine as a relatively new area and get its message across. And a lot of producers feel that one of the best ways to get the message across is to do something alternative, deliberately. Now, they may well be able to make the greatest Shiraz and the greatest Chardonnay and the greatest Cabernet you've ever seen, but they know that that market's really, really crowded. Now, I know Granite Belt producers exactly in that position, and they've elected to go with alternative varieties. And so on the Granite Belt for some time, we've got this thing called the Strange Bird Trail, and the strange bird meaning the alternative varieties. And as a sort of a quick image thing to just capture people quickly and readily, it's been very, very successful. Those that want to settle in and do a more in-depth study of what's really good on the Granite Belt often go past the Strange Bird program pretty quickly. But the strange birds have been really, really popular. Now, that is where people are putting a lot of effort into deliberately growing alternative varieties. So in terms of what's going to be good, there's a big range at the moment, and because of commercial reasons, there's a lot of diversity. I agree that when you come to some great Cabernet like this, and to some Shiraz, and to some Tempranillo, and one or two others, the wines are fantastic. They go in national wine shows and they do really, really well. The problem is that the market's really crowded for some of those, and it can be hard going. Whereas if you've got some of the alternative varieties, it just can mean that you can get a foothold much more easily. But I think it might be time to come back to Brad. You'll have to unmute this, Brad, but you obviously must have given some thought to that when you decided to go with Alvarinho. And you mentioned earlier on that it's a strange bird, and you're quite proud of the fact that you're going with an alternative variety to put forward. So tell us about that. As a business.
Yeah, no, it is. We're proud of it. In terms of what we will look like in 10 years' time, who knows? But the strange bird was developed at least 15, 20 years ago. John Alex might correct me on that, but
about 15 years ago, yeah.
The same sort of question was asked a long time ago, and with our different elevations, our different aspects, different vineyards have vines that suit their aspect very well, and I think it'll be down to each vineyard will have their flagship variety, opposed to the region having a flagship variety.
But as a business decision, do you find that you can get interest readily from people because it's such an interesting alternative variety, with a strange spelling and things like that?
Yeah, definitely. We've found Alvarinho. One of the reasons we planted it was it comes from a similar region to the Tempranillo, which is proven to grow well. Yep. So it all starts in the vineyard. If you can't grow a variety easily, it's hard work in the winery to make it an enjoyable wine.
Yeah.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
My observation would be that years ago, Shiraz was the dominant varietal in Stanthorpe, and in fact, James Halliday rated our Shiraz, the regional Shiraz, as the best Shiraz in Australia, 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10, in the 2 years in the early 80s, 90s. And I think there's been no question we make great Shiraz, no question at all. But I think our future is in the alternatives, and I agree with Brad. I think Tempranillo there's no question that Tempranillo is a varietal that does extremely well in the Granite Belt. Same reason we have an Alvarinho, which we're very, very proud of, and the Malbec is another varietal that goes extremely well. And it's very hard to compete with the big guys when they can put wine in a bottle labelled and capped for under $4, and we poor, independents are looking at $10 to $12, particularly if we use very good quality oak. So I think we need a point of difference, and I think that's the future of the Granite Belt. And I think you may recall Jancis Robinson said exactly the same thing. So I think that that's our future.
Yep. I'm not sure this is all very nice, but I'm not sure any of that's correct. Strange Bird is a lovely story. The truth is, I bet if you go to the cellar door, they sell a lot of Chardonnay and they sell a lot of Shiraz. And they sell a lot of sweet wine. I think the Strange Bird is a wonderful fantasy, actually. The Granite Belt does great wines across a very broad spectrum. As we know, some outstanding Chardonnays. That unoaked Chardonnay that Little Twisted Gum does, I've put that up against some at blind tastings with people and blowing them away. There are some remarkable wines here. And guess what? A lot of them aren't strange birds. As much as we love talking about these alternative varieties that Peter McGlashan identified with when he created the strange birds, you know, the mainstream varieties are still the mainstream varieties, and there's no turning away from the fact that Queensland does them very well.
Strange birds. Look, I'd just like to say, Des, that you know, I sort of agree with what you're saying, but the whole thing is with regards to strange bird, I think it's fantastic. I'm a lover of Petit Verdot. I just think that's something really, really, really special within that area. The Tempies are great. I think that you've got a really great area there. Should really push for that Petit Verdot because it's a strange bird. It's a bit different to everybody. What my question was really for everybody who's a wine grower there, there's a thing called tremia, which is where you were talking about bushfires and the smoke gets into the vines and whatever. They've done some studies scientifically, either enhances or disenhances the flavour of the fruit in the drink. Are people going to continue with making, or are they going to move that aside, or they're going to try to do with the tremia? That's my question. Thank you.
I think one of the difficulties with that bushfire, with that smoke taint, is that it is. I know what you say. It can, in very small quantities, be there and be maybe a complexing thing. Doesn't take much of it. We up at Hidden Creek, we went through the will we or will we won't we when we had that bushfire, not the one that came here, but the one that was way down in the valley past us, but the smoke all came up. And the smoke went through that was 2 years ago, smoke went through our top vineyard, and it was just smoke, and the smoke was around densely for a few days, but the bushfires came nowhere near us. But we got the grapes tested, and sure enough, they got it. Anyway, we decided we would put that Shiraz through the filter and turn it into rosé, which we did. And commercially, fortunately for us, rosé sells pretty well. But we did keep some of the Shiraz back, and we made some wine. And, you know, when it gets through in a bottle and it just ages a bit, sure enough, the bloody smoke taint came up on it. You know, so the numbers said that it wouldn't. And I know you can do it by numbers, but you know, when you got this smoke taint thing, and I'm pretty sensitive. I could see it, and I didn't like it. I think maybe some people wouldn't see it, but on the other hand, you know, you just got to make a decision. I think it's pretty tough. I think if you got any smoke taint, you've got to just, unfortunately, got to piss it off, and it's a real problem. And you know, if maybe if it's tiny quantities, but anyway, it's a problem.
Well, I was reading in a Cosmos magazine, a scientific magazine, which was that they're actually doing scientific evaluations of if it's going to make it better or not. So yeah, this is where my questions was.
No,
so,
I cannot see it making it better. I think it's just in tiny quantities. The trouble is it comes up smelling like an ashtray. That's the problem. The smoke taint.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a nice smokiness. You know, like a bit of smokiness on food can be a nice smokiness, but smokiness from bloody bushfire smoke taint is ashtray type smoke, and it's bloody awful. That's the problem.
Right.
Okay. Any other comments? Or John, do you want to say something there?
If I may, I'm not sure if I'm on.
Yes, you're on. Yes, we can hear you.
All right. I'm a POM. I lived out here for 5 years. I've been coming out here for 20 years.
I'm so sorry.
I've tasted Stanthorpe wine that you would never, ever believe. But let's go quickly on the smoke thing. I haven't tasted one wine that has been contaminated by smoke. I've spoken to many winemakers who, a lot of guys went over to rosé this year because they were worried about the contamination. Still no contamination. Maybe I'm getting the wrong end of, or I don't taste what you taste, Andrew. But thank you for allowing me to say a few words. It's a lovely evening. Thanks,
John, where were you born, may I ask?
Sorry?
Where were you born, may I ask?
Hampshire.
And what did you do there?
Close enough. I don't know who's asking me, but...
Emma.
Emma, sorry, who are you asking? Yeah, Hampshire.
It's Des Houghton, mate. My persona up there is Emma. My daughter loved me on.
Yeah.
What do you? How come you came to Australia?
South of England.
And Andrew, that was terrific, mate. That was very good. Thank you very much.
Pleasure for that. And I was just saying, I think we lost the comment. You got on you, Des, for that. I think we've sort of pretty much running out of time, and we've gone 15 minutes over, so that's all part of fun. Just a reminder to everybody that in 2 weeks' time, so you'll get a reminder Zoom link, and there's another 3 wines, and please all join in and taste the wines and enjoy the fun, and make more comments. We'd love to hear from you. So good night, everybody, and we'll see you all in 2 weeks' time. All the best, John.
Thank you.
We'll see you on
Thank
the golf
you.
course with a bit of luck. I mean, it'd be lovely if we can get down there and play golf. You're looking at James Staniforth up there smiling. He plays off scratch, you know, and you can now. He's just moved to Warwick, so you've got to try and drag him down to play golf from time to time. So, James, these all go down and play at Tenterfield.
You should know, James, that we have an organisation here that's been going. This organisation has been going longer than Australia. It was actually populated by others.
That sounds perfect.
It's called the Wine.
Andrew still owes me some money from golf.
Society of Golf.
Oh, you got all that wine.
The ancients are.
I'm very impressed how Arledge turns up with the suit on and the waistcoat. I thought that was very good.
He scrubs
I
it.
almost had to rush and put on a tie.
I was wearing the blues just before because I was out there fighting a fire.
He scrubs it. He plays a mean game of golf as well, and he does a little newsletter about the golfing. And so the golfing at the moment is at Tenterfield, but we Brisbaneites that are up here from time to time, we can't go and play. They all rate as border residents, and they get a pass from the Queensland government, and they can nick over the border for essential reasons. And one of the essential reasons is to play golf on bent grass greens at Royal Tenterfield.
Beautiful.
Absolutely.
So that's what they do.
Let's do it. Let's play some golf, drink some wine.
Sorry.
Yeah, no,
I'm sorry.
You got Taylor's there. That's a bit of a. Well, James, you'll just have to get when you get your ass up here.
That's a slurper.
When you get your ass up here to Stanthorpe sometime in months to come, we'll take. Well, if you and I can't get down to Tenterfield with John Arledge, we'll have to go and play at Royal.
Let's arrange it. Royal Stanthorpe. Let's do it.
Ooh. It's not a bad course, John.
Ooh.
Not as good.
Well,
as
we could, but we could actually we could go one step better than that. We could go to Royal Wollongara.
Yeah.
Have you ever played Wollongara?
No, I haven't had that.
Diabolical. Absolutely diabolical.
I've only played the Royal Queensland and with Andrew. That's all I've done.
Not bad, is it? It's good.
Oh, it's not bad. You know, with the ex-president, it's quite good. But,
when you got to slum it and get around a golf course, it.
I know. You know.
Well, you'd be very welcome, James. Look forward to seeing you.
Yeah, definitely. No, I would love to come down. Love to come down.
See you in the morning, John.
Yes, Johnny, you bet you.
Oh, John, you're on the team. You guys are going
Do you
down.
want me to pick you up?
You're going
no, mate, I'm going to go a bit later.
Now, Des, do you need any info from us? Do you got any info about any of this for the wines tonight, or the one 2 weeks ago? Do you want any more info? I can get it for you, no problem.
No, I think
Yeah.
I've got enough, but I'll give you a call if I need something.
Yeah, if you need anything, just
and I'll write something within the next week or so.
yeah, that'd be good. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
And
You know where we live, John.
I'll give you a hoy.
Brad, if you send that book in to me, that'd be great. I've spoken to the wife, and that's fabulous if you can do that.
Yeah, no, we'll do, James.
Just send it through on the email.
Got your email,
All the
I'll
best,
send you a
all the
contact
best, gentlemen.
Very good. Be in touch.
Thanks.
Yeah.
We'll see you all.
Thank you.
Zoom. See you in 2 weeks.
Thank
time.
you. Thank you.
Okay. Good night. See you, James. Good
Thanks, Andrew.
Yes, folks.
Thank you, Amber.
Night,
Good
everybody.
info.
night. See you,
Night.
mate.